I am all in favor of doing this quickly, so let's start with the minutes, not from February 11th, my apologies, because we did not meet in February, so from January 14th. And I had sent out a version that I changed a little bit from the original, and then after I printed it out, I said, oh, Mr. Abercrombie was missing an I. And I put it in, and I think I sent you the Word document. Okay. Are there any comments, corrections to be made?
No.
Motion to approve? Second? All in favor? Thank you. We do not have a public for comment. Mr. Director.
Okay. What under building update, did you have something specific or just general? Are you talking about the roof or all?
Oh, you've got a couple of things that you can roll into.
Sure.
Whatever.
So we do have a couple things happening in the library as usual. We do have we'll go from small to large. We have a repair happening just inside the main interior doors into the main space of the library. There have been a couple of what do you call them, duct tape patches to hold down a couple of carpet tiles, where apparently there's some sort of like a crumbling concrete filler beneath. And so as it's disintegrating, the carpet tiles are loosening. There's nothing to hold on to. So I have been trying to get that fixed for some time, and we have someone coming from Summerlin. Is it Summerlin?
Yep,
Summerlin University's coming to. They came out, looked at it. They can't, without pulling all the carpet tiles out, they can't tell the full extent of the problem beneath. But they are going to come out very soon. I don't have a date yet from Gary, but we did talk about better and worse days in a week for them to come out and do the work. They'll have to be working right in front of the doors. So the doors will be closed. People will have to enter through the meeting room off to the side there, and so that will not be available for its normal uses.
So Patrick, when you say do the work, what work will they do?
So they're going to remove the carpet tiles. They're going to
Just the damage, or just the ones that are not adhering, or a larger area?
The whole area in front of
Oh, okay.
the doors.
The
They're going to have to remove all the top carpet tiles to determine if there's more going on than just under the two tiles where we know that they're loose. So they're going to have to pull up the tiles, and then unfortunately, when we went to look at the attic stock of carpet tiles that we have lots of some, and we have very few of these, which is what's in 80% of the building. So unfortunately, we have like a half a box. There's maybe like a half a dozen or 10 tiles at most.
Can I ask a stupid question? Did you check and see if they still make them and just get a little
They
bit
do
of
not
stock
make
in?
them. Unfortunately, they do not make them anymore. Because I think someone checked that, because we had the packaging, so they could go back and check and see if they could get them. So the plan is for that, and I did ask whether or not once they're pulled up, whether they could be glued back down. Apparently, that was not a good idea. So this does present a problem, though, because
Like
no
in the
matter
future.
in the future, because anywhere that something gets damaged beyond replacement, we're going to be out of tiles. I mean, for all intents and purposes, we are out of tiles. So I'm not sure what we're going to do about that, but it's unfortunate. So the plan for the area in front of the door is that they're going to get a neutral colored tile and put it down, and it's going to essentially emulate the look of having a walk-off rug there. So it should look,
Yeah.
yeah.
And a tile made of what material? Carpet?
The carpet tiles,
Okay.
sorry,
Okay.
yeah, carpet
We
tiles.
bought these carpet tiles just to make you giggle for a minute,
Yeah.
thinking that if there's
Yeah.
like a stain, you can replace one, but you have to have the ones to
Yeah.
replace.
This is one of those things that, yeah. So I actually had a conversation with a fellow library director who's going through the construction process, and so I was like, here's a new one that I just discovered, here's a new tip for you. Always.
It's funny, like you think that the builder, like someone would think of that, like people who have done this multiple times would think of that for you, but they don't. I know.
Well, it seems you could get something to coordinate.
That's the thing.
Yeah, I don't
But
think
it-
this would be hard
If you
to.
bought enough at the beginning, it would be great. You know,
Yeah, so I will, I'm gonna follow up though, because I am sort of concerned that we should see what it is that they're planning to put down before they come in and just put it down, so,
But
yeah.
then what about the concrete under it?
Oh, so that will also be repaired.
By Sutherland?
Either by
By
someone or
someone.
by, I assume by a subcontractor, but yes, that's part of the repair work. I believe that they're
They do
capable of
subfloors.
doing that.
It's the subfloor, so they would handle that.
Is that probably a concrete? Something like that?
I guess I don't know why it was filled with something, but or maybe he described it as a leveler. I'm not really sure what and why. But we'll know more when they pull it up. So that's happening sometime in the next few weeks.
Patrick, if you
Yeah.
can, if you're around while they're doing the repair, if you can get some pictures,
Oh, sure.
because that might give us, first of all, a real impression of the problem, but secondly, figuring this out for the future.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they may be here like, at the break of dawn, so I may or may not, but if I'm here to take those pictures, I will. And I can also ask Gary to do that if he's in the building when they're working. So we also have some fresh spots of water infiltration coming through in a couple different spots. One of them actually is, where is it? It's actually
It's right there.
a
You can
spot
see
there.
it, yeah.
Which I had not seen it before. It's not super noticeable,
It's on
but
this side of the light, my side. Okay.
Oh,
1, 2, 3rd tile up.
so that has happened. And then we had a spot in the staff workroom where there were a couple of streaks coming down the wall. So those were, I reported those to Gary and to Mike Mason, just so that they were aware. I also had some, in the same spot that is in my office that's been a problem. That was actively leaking, and I reported that. So that those have all been reported. The roofing company that has been out is going to come and take a look at it. They had been requested that they come out and remove the snow and try to get at it. But the other problem is that I guess the temperature is a factor in
sure.
working with the shingles.
Yeah.
So I don't know. They basically said, they can't really do much until it warms up. So I don't know how warm it needs to be, but hopefully in coming weeks they'll have some warm enough weather to get up there. Unfortunately, the sun does not really shine on that part of the roof yet, and it's in shadow of the higher roof. So I don't know. It may be a little while, but
Is it Rigid who comes out and does the small scale repairs?
this is Rivet.
Rivet.
Rivet Roofing. That they've been out here before, and they were the ones that did the initial. Before we hired Gail, they gave us kind of a thorough. One of the people that was out gave us a fairly thorough impression of what they saw on the roof, and what they saw as sort of some of the shortcomings, and we shared that with Gail and with town council previously. So that's been kind of part of the discovery process for us to figure out what's going on, and then we have the latest proposal from Gail for additional work, which we discussed several meetings ago. And before we go into that, I will just give you the update that in speaking to Mike Mason last week, he went, he got in touch with Mark Sullivan, our former OPM, requested the file for this project. Did receive all of the files, so we basically have, as far as I know, a complete set of documents for the project, at least everything that Mark had.
Do you know how that's contained? How was that passed to us? Was it
I'm assuming,
email?
I'm assuming electronically. I didn't ask that question, but I'm assuming that it was an electronic thing because he had described it as being archived. So I think that that meant, that it was like, zipped up and on a hard drive somewhere or somewhere in the cloud. So, but we have that. That's been passed on to the folks that will be reviewing it. That's, on the legal side, that's town council. They are now in possession of it. They're in possession of all contracts that we had with all the parties involved, and they'll be examining those things. And so, if you recall, we are now looking to have Gail examine those documents to get their impression of what's going on the roof, in terms of like what decisions were made, when they were made, how they were made, about the switch from metal to asphalt. And we also are asking that Gail create a schematic design for a potential replacement roof with various options for, a higher level or, various features. So they're going to, assuming that we pass this, they're going to, or approve this, they're going to get to work on that. And they will also have that schematic go by a cost estimator, which is part of the project cost here, in order to give us a sense of what that's going to cost. And of course, before, this is an important piece of what the town council is looking at, just to determine, well, what are we looking at here? What's our liability, just in terms of having to address this, so that they can decide what is a good decision about pursuing any kind of recourse with anyone involved. So, and for this, we have a grand total. The grand total for this the grand total was $27,500, and the breakdown is $23,400 for Gale, and then $4,100 for reimbursable expenses, and those are essentially for the cost estimation part of it. And then the breakdown within the Gale fee, $3,900 is for the document review once they get access to those files that we are now in possession of, and then $19,500 for the schematic design portion. And then that includes both of those things, both the document review and the schematic design. For each of those, that fee includes up to 2 meetings with Gail to discuss their findings or to discuss the schematic design.
Do we have any sense whether or not it's appropriate to go ahead with this, or should we hear something from town council first?
No, and I spoke with Mike about that.
Okay.
And said, is there any reason that is there anything different from where we were when we discussed this plan of action previously with them? And he said no. And he actually said that, really they can't move forward with any kind of recommendation until we have that cost estimate. So,
Okay.
So as far as he was concerned, there was no reason to pause on this.
Well, and also just because it just seems like the longer we wait, the more damage.
Oh, no, we have to do something about,
Yeah.
right, which is why Rivet is coming out. But I just wanted to make sure that,
I feel like we're poking holes in, what is the thing, you poke a hole and then something else.
yeah.
Black hole?
It's kind of like that.
Or in a dike. Either way.
Pick your metaphor.
Now just
Yeah.
wait,
So it feels
will
like
be
the
the
water's
dike.
gonna come
Lots of
We're gonna fix
possibilities.
that, and the water's gonna come in down there, it's like finding a way.
Unfortunately.
Water
So-
will do that.
Yeah, your comments raise so many different questions. I'm wondering, would this be a metal roof design? Or
Yes.
would they give us a litany of alternates?
So we asked specifically for them to give us a metal roof with various, I can't really describe them, but there are certain things that can be done to, as John Kropesky he mentioned that he used the term oil canning several times. So there are certain things that can be done to give the roof a more regular appearance so that there's not any kind of rippling or whatever. I don't know what that entails. I don't know. But so there'll be like those kinds of like, what is the basic cost for the most no frills? What will it entail to have certain other potentially desirable features? Some of those may be, and I can't. We'll have to go into more detail with him, but some of that may be about how solar panels would potentially attach to the roof. Because I know some, even with a metal roof, some certain types of roofs, it's still going to penetrate the roof, whereas the standing seam, it's going to go through the seams,
Yeah.
as I understand it. So, those are some of the things, some of the options that we might be looking at with this.
Anywhere do they list possible synthetics as the roofing material, or no?
We only ask them to look at metal.
Okay.
Well, the thing was, we don't want to have to create a vented roof because that would add ridiculous amount of expense. And I think a metal roof can be applied to what's there, although they may have to replace whatever's under it. But I don't think, I mean, he talked about the membrane, but I don't,
Yeah.
and he talked about slate, and those are not, I don't think, acceptable.
That's fine. Certainly, it seems like metal's the way to go. I'm sad we didn't do that right from the start, but it was very
Yeah.
complicated at the time and very
Yep.
expensive. And it'll be even more expensive now.
It is
Yeah.
by the minute, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So I think we decided that the most streamlined approach to this, because this is not only a matter of deciding what to do to address the roof, like the reality of the roof, but it's also a matter of collecting information to know what we're potentially in for, to replace it so that we can make a decision about how to, pursue a legal strategy. So we also didn't want to outlay, exponentially or multiples of what we were paying for to have like a schematic design for this type of roof and this type of roof and this type of roof. If there's something that's found to be wanting, we can obviously go back and address it then if we say, oh, this is not going to work for some reason that we haven't thought of.
Yeah, and it does seem like this is triage, and we want to do the best possible repair with the sort of least invasive damage. I hope that the underlayment with all the insulation is salvageable. I expect it could be.
But if it's leaking, some of it must be damaged.
Well, they
Yeah.
had, no, I mean, I remember John saying very clearly that they did find wet insulation,
Yeah.
and that has no R value, and that will have to be replaced. But is it going to be the case that that's a decision that's made, like by section or,
Well, hopefully it's by section. and you
right,
don't
as
have-
opposed to the
right.
whole thing?
Yeah.
Certainly.
So we had, I guess the next component of this is where to authorize
Funds?
money for this. At the amount in question, I would recommend that we continue to draw from the remaining funds from the
Building?
grant.
Oh,
Or the building fund, is there more?
Not the capital campaign fund, but the
grant.
money that's from the original project. There is still
Okay.
money, project funds.
We still have that.
Left.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so the total available to us from that source is $88,519.01. Just to be. completely
well, just wait
transparent.
until the pennies are taken out of circulation.
Yes.
I move that we authorize the expenditure of $27,500 to be spent on the document review and schematic design for Gale Engineering.
And I second that.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Thank you.
I think we need to read the exact value, 27,500.
500.
Should we be brainstorming like different options, or should we just be? I
What
guess
kind of
I want to
options?
keep trying to move it forward because, you know, the longer we wait.
Options for what?
Well,
Type of roof or?
I don't know. I think maybe we need to see this. I guess I wonder what'll happen if council gets some money back from us, you know, who's paying, or if we have to pay 100% of it out of the library funds and.
We'll have to.
It's gonna have to be done.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
At
it's,
some point, but if, you know, does it have to happen tomorrow? I mean, that's a question, like, can we, you know, keep kind of, again, plugging the holes as they happen, knowing that if we're gonna have to tear the whole thing off, a lot of that's gonna get replaced anyway, so, you know, no real harm. I'm not sure, I don't know what, you know, what Gail would recommend or what any other professional
We
would
just have to
recommend.
wait and see what they say.
Yeah, I think at this point, it's just kind of too early to really say, but.
Okay. So
I
however
don't-
challenging it is, it makes so much sense to wait until we have more information.
but we still have to keep moving
Yes.
forward.
We're still
absolutely.
moving forward, and I don't know that I have a sense from this as to when they expect to be able to deliver this. I mean, I would guess it's gonna be, you know, something like three to, you know, at least 3 months before they can turn this around.
Well, I mean, it's easy enough to ask John.
Yes, I will find out, but I
Yeah.
mean, it's not like this is gonna be something that we can do anything with immediately. It's gonna be some time before they can get it done. Wait, I'm sorry, did we have the vote?
We did?
Yes.
Yeah, we voted, okay, we're good.
It was unanimous?
It was
Except for
unanimous.
that one.
Except for 1 cent. I'll pay for that.
Clear that in.
Okay, and then what else? We're there.
Budget.
The operating budget, I mean, unfortunately, you folks know as much as I do about what's happening with finances in this town. I don't really understand the situation, but we did have a department heads meeting last week. That was a very, you know, it was a slightly doom and gloom scenario. And
It's
I, you
every
know,
time.
I have not had a chance to go back and watch the select board meeting that was referenced, because apparently there was, you know, some discussion of, you know, what was going on and the potential repercussions. But it does seem that some of the augmentation to our budget that we were hoping for to just sort of keep up with, you know, the reality, the current reality, that doesn't seem to be in the cards for us this year. But thankfully, we do have some other strategies, or I do, you know, that I think are worth a try. The first one is, well, first of all, the discussion really around the town and finance committee was to try to make the best pitch that we can to make the folks that are currently on that committee understand the reality for town departments. So I don't think it's a matter of, you know, departments giving up and saying, you know, whatever, you know, doesn't matter, you're not going to give us any more money. But they do need to understand that this, you know, that we are under strain and under a degree of hardship by not being able to expand, you know, staffing and resources. I mean, that's our position. I don't know what other specific departments or the strains that they're under, but I know that, you know, we're really struggling, and a lot of the, you know, as I mentioned previously, a lot of the functions that we're taking over, sort of on behalf of the town, and doing so gladly, but like, you know, this has become a default meeting room for all kinds of departments and organizations that, you know, then other town departments are coming, you know, meetings that they're coming to. And it's great, and it's kind of what we expected and what we wanted, but it needs to be acknowledged that this is a cost that the library is bearing, and it's difficult. And so, you know, I don't know, you know, again, if we have to just sort of stick with a level funded or level service budget, again, the level of service that is expected is growing. So what is it that gets cut? where do we shave something off to be able to just keep up if we can't expand the staffing, and that's something that we're looking at. But one of the other strategies that I'm looking at is applying for the Mass Cultural Council offers an operating grant for cultural institutions that can be used without restriction. It doesn't have, it's essentially can be used for any element of operations. There are public libraries that have taken advantage of that grant. I attended a Zoom meeting for like an orientation for the grant, which is due in April. I don't have the date here, but it's sometime in April. And the minimum grant award is $5,000. It's, you know, the typical grant award is substantially more than that. And the great thing about this grant is that it's like a recurring grant. So once you are awarded that grant, you're able to then get it for, I think, 4 consecutive years.
And what are they looking for?
You know, they're looking for the typical kinds of cultural council type things. I mean, like, you know, that we provide free or not. It doesn't even have to be free, but I mean, as far as I'm concerned, we're like the poster child for the kind of grant that they would want to support.
And I think, you know, we should make sure that the select board knows that we're applying for grants, like that we're teaming with them. Like, I think it's important that we, like, just, you know, kind of be clear.
Let them know that we're trying to help
we're in it,
ourselves
right,
as well.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I think that they like that. Like, I think they will like that. And I think, I'm really glad you did that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And this also, you know, if you recall back in, I don't remember what meeting, November or December, when the trustees approved the use of some funding from Charlotte Smith, potentially to fund a part-time additional library staff person, we can go back to that. I didn't want to have to do that, but if we have to do that, again, we can't just.
So help me understand here, because my wife has been part of the Mass Cultural Council for Hadley in the past, and I don't know if anybody else has been involved with that. But I know that they will disperse funds for cultural events.
So this is not the local council. This is the Mass.
I just wanted to make sure that there was a distinction between the local funding or at the state level.
It's at the state level. I will say that it was a member of the local council that actually brought this opportunity to my attention, though. So that was actually very helpful and much appreciated, because it was not something that I was aware of.
Patrick, does the library charge a fee to any organizations for use of the this community room?
We do not.
I mean, is like even just thinking ahead, right? Like, and it gets dicey because having a free room is good and important. The idea of even the cost of cleaning it at the end.
A use fee.
Is it worth thinking about? I'm not saying doing anything about it now, but is it worth thinking about?
A cleaning fee, just call it what it is, a cleaning
Yeah,
fee.
oh yeah, that's fine.
I hate to like not make someone able, like, I love that this room can be used by anybody, I really do. Maybe after a certain number of people in it, like just, and I don't necessarily think we should waste any time on this thought, but just maybe in the back of our minds, like if you're having 75, you know, if you have 10 people in, we're not making a big imprint. If someone had a small meeting in here, you're not, but I'm thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I would say generally speaking, I mean, obviously it does add, depending on, you know, what types of meetings are happening, it does add to.
Like if you're having
the
food.
to the custodial load, but at the same time, you know, if the custodians are coming in as they are now, even if we took this room, we just said closed for, you know, until further notice, and we said no more meetings, it's too much, we're too busy, we can't handle it. It wouldn't change our need to have the 5-day custodial service that we're doing. They still have to vacuum the whole building. They still have to clean all, you know, whatever 6 bathrooms. So I mean, I understand what you're saying, but it's sort of like a shifting of the costs that are just inherent in running a public space onto the folks that want to, hold meetings and use this as a public resource. I mean, this is kind of what we sold, in my opinion, this is what we sold the building.
No, I
and-
totally
and-
agree, but I
so you-
also agree if you come in here with a lot of food or like, I don't know.
Yeah,
There's no reason to talk about it now.
I don't see,
Like,
I don't see the cleaning as I don't see the custodial element as the thing that's really kind of breaking us. It's more just the degree of coordination that's required of taking, we probably take 5 to 10 calls a day about meeting spaces.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be this space. It's the
Right, no,
quiet
yeah.
study space. It's using the local
Yeah.
history room, which originally was never even considered to
Right.
be a meeting
No,
space.
yeah.
But now it's by default, it's become an overflow meeting space. And they're both in use all the time. All these spaces are in use all the time. It's really more, the weight of this is really borne on the desk staff that are dealing with the coordination of this. And there's really no easy way around that. And it's just, that's, again, the more that we're spending time working on that, there's less time to spend on other things like programming or, whatever, just cataloging the books, that kind of stuff. So the strain here is real, and I think, maybe 2 years ago, when we were kind of like asking for small increases, and the increases were, they were very small what we were asking for. But we were saying, I was repeatedly saying, this is just the very least of what we could possibly need. And at this point, like the kinds of increases that we were asking for 2 years ago are just, they wouldn't even make a difference. Like now we really need reinforcements. We need extra bodies in here. So all that being said, I'm still hopeful that we have avenues to pursue, that there are things that we can do to get through this. And so I'm not despairing that it's just, I think everybody is to a degree suffering a degree of burnout and shell shock from everything that goes on here all the time. I didn't even put this in my report, and I forgot about it until now, but we had to have someone trespassed, 2 weeks ago. Someone that came in and created a disturbance, and then basically, I talked to him, the police talked to him. We said, look, this is essentially your final warning. You can't have this kind of behavior in the library. And then he was back the next morning and, jumping out of his seat and pestering people and making people feel comfortable. We just had to have him trespassed. And it's just, you can't make this stuff up. It's just, it's not surprising. And this is actually still, I've worked in a lot of places. This is still the most pleasant and peaceable community that I've ever worked in. But it's just a lot. There's just always something happening. So we just need a little more oomph.
So what are the things that we can do to support this? My degree was originally in time study and leveling and all of this, and I just wonder how we can help you figure out how to spread your resources differently, because I don't see anyone getting any more resources anytime soon.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. One of the things that that we talked about in the department heads meeting is again trying to get the folks that we interface with when it comes to budget time. The select board folks and the finance committee folks. With the select board, there is a liaison system that we're assigned. We have a liaison every year.
Who was ours this year?
Amy.
Is it Amy? Yeah,
I feel like I should know that.
Yeah, no, you're right. It hasn't changed. So we do have a liaison there, but when it comes to the finance committee, I always feel, I was joking in the department heads meeting that whenever we go to the finance committee, they're all lovely people, and they want to understand. But I tend to feel, and a lot of people in the room agreed with this when I said it, is that you kind of go before the finance committee and you kind of feel like you're dealing with people having memory loss. Like what do you do exactly? Like you have to explain it. And it's such a big subject for a 5 or 10 minute pitch that really, I raised the question, why do we not have, like the select board, have some sort of a liaison system so that at least somebody on that board is well acquainted with what you do and what you need, what your needs are,
Although
what your stressors are.
we have a liaison to the select board, we think, are we 100% sure that that person is our liaison? Is it
Yeah,
Amy?
yeah, it's Amy
100%?
Parsons.
Okay.
Last year it was Jane.
All right.
The year before it was Amy, and it's Amy again.
Okay.
They actually announced them at the,
I know. Do they ever sit in on any meetings or anything like that? I mean, what's the
When
connection?
Amy became the liaison, I made a point of asking her to come over, and we sat and you know, and kind of like talked about this kind of stuff. We haven't had a chance to really connect since then, and I guess that's probably been, what, at least a year since that happened. But I think whenever that change happens, I mean, I just love to have the opportunity to have anybody from the finance committee just do the same, even if it was like a one-time deal, just to get them in the door and sit down with them and talk. So, I mean, what I would say is that anything that you can do in terms of, you know, I would say a statement from the trustees, not just from me, but also, you know, because I'll be doing that, but anything from the trustees to talk about, like, the, you know, what this department contributes to the life of the town, and on any number of different levels. But I think I think it's particularly compelling the degree to which those other departments are relying on us for this facility.
so that brings me back to like the idea I had that we, for whatever reason, I'm not blaming anyone, we didn't follow through on, maybe myself, is that if we could get trustees here, if we could map out the busy hours and maybe get a trustee here once in a while, talking and listening to the public, like getting information, what do you like, what do you use here, like kind of compiling information that we can then kind of, you know, tell them what's going on, but then also use that information to pass along and be able to speak from firsthand. Like, it's wonderful that you give us lots of information, I'm not saying that, but if I'm here having coffee with someone and they tell me something, then when I relay the story, it's like firsthand, right? Like, it's a lot more passionate because it came from that. So maybe it's important that we think about doing something like I'd be happy to, I'm not trying to push it on anyone else. I'd be happy to like do that.
I think there's never a reason to not do that kind of thing, to hear from the public and just to be on hand and be a familiar face. I think that is great. I think there's also no substitute for just, you know, for us being in touch with these other boards that, you know, that may play such an outsized role, because they do hear from constituents around town, and so they do hear, you know, they do come to the job, I think, with a certain bottom line about, you know, holding the line. But at the same time, you know, if we're in a context where, and again, I'm maybe speaking out of turn here because I don't really fully understand the financial picture at the town level, but if you're talking about a situation where if something doesn't happen, so perhaps like an override vote or something like that, if something like that doesn't happen, you're not even going to keep level service, you're actually going to lose service because people are going to have to be laid off. You know, if they don't understand what that really entails, what that really looks like, and what the repercussion is, I don't know that they can really make a really informed decision and have the bravery to stand up to their own constituents and say, you're not constituents, they're appointed, but I mean, just to say, you know, this is important.
Every other town surrounding us, and then some, is under incredible duress. And maybe I just see it because I'm a teacher.
Sure.
And seeing that a whole teaching team may be laid off in Amherst at the middle school, who knows? And, you know, what's happening in Belchertown, what's happening in East Hampton, Amherst, Northampton, South Hadley, all these towns are really struggling because they can't even come up to sort of level funding.
Yeah, I mean, Andy was speaking to that from the school's perspective here, just here at Hadley at that department heads meeting, and you know, just, you know, it's huge and unthinkable. I mean, just the degree to which services will suffer if we can't, you know, keep up with the funding.
But especially if the U.S. Department of Education's cutting, they start.
1,300 they just said.
What?
They're cutting 1,300 jobs tomorrow.
Oh.
Out of education.
You don't have to wait long for an answer. It's amazing.
just came like
in
an
how
hour.
that's going to be impacting all of us.
But
Yeah.
and I know I'm being ridiculous, like I know I'm being kind of pushy about it, but I do feel like the more, like, I come in here now and I mostly do my own business, whereas I feel like years ago, I was here a lot more for other reasons. So maybe it's just me that wants to do that, and I'm
Absolutely.
happy to do that. Like, I feel like you're here volunteering, so you like really do have the ear of the, like, you know what I mean? And I feel like I miss that a little bit. And would
I,
we have
I see what the
those-
effect is
Right, that's
on
what I'm
staff.
saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have first
Right,
hand,
yeah, and I feel
Familiarity
a
with
little
that.
bit out of touch in that way, and I wanna, like, maybe that's a way to feel back in touch with that information.
well,
I felt
maybe
like-
there's a way, you know, if we reserve the small, whatever room, prop the door open.
Or sit right out there in the lobby. But it's.
But if someone, and then put up a sign that says, please come and tell me what you think about the library. And if we put something on the website, if we get Scott to write something in the
He does
paper,
that, yeah.
if we create a little blurb for Hadley Media.
I totally would be a volunteer that would do that. So I'm not trying to, I really would love to do that.
Yeah.
I just feel like it would help my voice. You know, for a long time I was the trustee chair and I was here all the time and I really knew. And now
Yeah.
that I'm busy in other things, I'm here, but just to like take out my books. And I feel like, and I had kids and it was, you know, it was more, I'd love to do that. Like,
You're a little bit of a step removed
yeah,
from.
and I feel like I can speak better. I agree we need to speak to those folks, but I feel like I would be a better speaker to the folks in town if I really,
If you
the
had the
elected officials in
first-hand
town,
experience.
if I had first-hand experience.
So, you know, the select board has been doing a number of joint meetings where they'll be meeting with the finance committee, then roll right into a select board meeting. I wonder, is there a way to do a joint meeting with the finance committee or something?
So
like that?
we will be, we will have an opportunity to speak with the select board and finance committee I don't exactly know what the format's going to be this year, and I'm not really sure. It's also not clear to me, the way Linda Sanderson has described it, is sort of like saying it's, for the smaller departments, you don't necessarily need to meet with the finance committee, but if you choose, you know, if you would like to meet with the finance committee, you know, we'll find a way to make that work.
Sure.
They're wanting to meet primarily with the large departments, but the question is, where's the cutoff? Who's large and who's small? I don't know where,
Oh,
I don't know
well,
where we fall on that, but.
it certainly seems we're pretty large.
Well,
Yes.
well, relative, I mean, if you look at the amount of money, DPW,
Okay,
schools.
all right, all right.
So we
Fire
used
police,
to,
yeah.
years ago.
Point taken.
Many years ago, I don't even know if you had to do it when you were director. We used to put together a presentation, both trustees and director, and we would have like a 5-minute slideshow presentation for the finance committee
About the budget.
about the budget, and we would get called in, and we would, trustees that could come would come, and the director would come, and we would kind of do a presentation to the finance committee. I
And
kind
answer
of liked
questions.
doing that, because I felt like we answered questions, it
Yeah.
was really like but they stopped, they haven't done it in a long time.
Yeah, I don't know if that is just a casualty of the pandemic and remote meetings. I'm
Right.
not really sure, but the meetings seem to be less about getting into the weeds and more kind of like looking at the big picture. And so I'm not really sure what they're up for. And, you know, we do want to defer to them, but we do want to get our message across that, you know, that we are a department that is growing, and our needs are growing, and that we just want them to acknowledge that, even if they are unfortunately powerless to really do anything this
Right.
year. It's not going to make the problem go away, and we'll be back next year essentially, you know, saying
Yeah.
the same thing.
I mean, the concern is, these are still pretty good times. And I just
Right.
really wonder and worry, you know, if recessions
How much
come
worse
up or
it's gonna
other
be.
things, what will it look like during very hard times?
Right.
Yep.
Right. That's why it's really puzzling how the economy can be quote unquote doing so well, and yet everyone is just in, you know, distress.
Well, I think one of the things, I know I read a couple of towns talking about a 20% increase in health insurance.
That's what Amherst is doing. We had a meeting this afternoon. Our health insurance is going way up for all teachers, town employees, all health insurance is going
Right,
way
but,
up.
I mean, that is a cost that.
No, it's not there, no one's,
Right.
like,
Yeah.
we're not
Yes,
like,
but that
hey.
is, but that's part
It's what it is,
of
yeah.
the crunch.
Yeah, totally.
And that's going to be everyone. That's not going to be just one, I mean, that's not a reflection of anyone's financial management skills.
No.
It
And I
is-
don't think even anyone who's on the back end of receiving the increase thinks that. Like, it's not like anyone thinks that
No,
someone's
I'm just
fair
saying though, that
manager,
that's a
yeah.
significant difference between
Absolutely.
the current year and the coming year.
Absolutely.
Can I ask a much more pragmatic question about the budget? If Town Hall is recommending a $1,400 decrease in computer resource services, what does, is there some rationale to that number? Does that represent a thing and we need to do one less of the thing? Or is that just a
Yeah.
number that they,
Is that a cost of one computer? Or are they
Was
just
it
doing
just
it
a
kind of across the
percentage,
board?
like a
Right.
percentage decrease?
or was that a place that they thought they could make a reduction without,
I'm not clear on where she,
got that from?
yeah.
And she is Linda?
Linda, yeah. Because I did create a note here saying that so in 2025, the amount for FY25 was just shy of $2,000. We were asking for $5,400, and so where that increase was coming from was so if you recall, we had a capital article on
Right.
a town meeting. So the purpose of that capital article was to buy additional computers. Adding additional computers entails an additional cost for the support. There's a support cost for each computer that's added to the network, and the work that CW Mars does to keep them updated and protected and functioning properly on the network. So there's that cost. Then there's also the cost that's related to the creation of the website, and specifically the library calendar membership. That's sort of the expensive part. The website itself doesn't really cost much at all, but the library calendar part, which is where the primary functionality for people around events and that's that is adding to the bottom line there. So those are what those costs are. I mean, can we will we be able to get by using other things like state aid? Sure. But again, like our total state aid rainy day fund, if we keep hitting it the way we're hitting it, is going to erode over time. But are we in any danger of having to shut something off or not do something this year because of that particular hole? No, I think we should.
Okay, so my next question then is,
Yep.
and I forget what the percentage is, that of your total budget, X% in order to be in compliance with MBLC needs to be whatever percentage for materials, including computers, of your whole budget. And they've reduced it by an amount. And did they reduce it by an amount that has any sense? Because that's not going to be proportionate to the reduction that they made to computer resource services.
We should be okay there, both in terms of the materials expenditure and the total increase from,
Right.
if the budget passed as Linda recommended it,
We're okay.
we'll be in compliance on both.
Okay,
on both
all
of
right.
those
I just wanted to
levels
make sure.
for materials and just overall budget increase.
But don't you think eventually then they're gonna have to change, MCLB is gonna have to change that compliance level? If every town is falling apart budget-wise, you can't hold them to a standard they can't attain and say it's your fault.
They do, you can apply for an exemption.
What are they gonna do when every town applies for an exemption? It's no longer an exemption, it's a fact of life.
Right.
I think the requirement really is not that unreasonable in that it's essentially asking that the departments keep up with inflation if we assume that inflation was 2%. That's essentially what they're asking.
Well, there are a couple of things.
That's what satisfies. If you fall below, or you fall below in terms of how much, whether you spend roughly 20% of your budget on materials for the public, then yes, you can apply for a waiver. You can't apply for a waiver perpetually, but they will entertain a waiver based on your specific circumstance. They also will look at whether your department is being
singled out for
versus
greater
sort of,
reductions relative to other departments.
Cuts. If this is something that's happening across the town in all town departments, they'll look at that and say, yeah, you're having some tough times over there, whatever town, and they'll give you, they generally will give you that waiver. But the MBLC is really there to protect library services, to have the rationale there to, the carrot in the situation is that by attaining that certification, we're going to get like 15 grand from them this year. And that pretty much, that's something that typically, actually, I shouldn't say what the amount is, I can't remember what the amount is, but it's somewhere in that neighborhood. And typically, as long as I've been here, that amount is generally lined up with the amount that we've asked for as an increase as a department. So it's sort of incentivized kind of keeping up with inflation. And in that amount, or that state aid money can be used for anything. It doesn't have any limitation on how we can use it. It could be for operations, it could be for a new roof.
And Susan, to your point, I think that over these next few years, there's going to be a lot of things subject to review.
You're gonna have to. And see things getting better for a very long time.
No, but we made it through like the Great Recession. We managed to get through it, and there was one time I think that we had to apply for a waiver, and then in the meantime we were able to have get a sort of a budgetary correction to get the small difference that that got us over the top, and we were able to pull that back and not apply for the waiver. But that was a depression. Everybody felt that. The inflation stuff is in a way kind of a de facto depression. It hits some harder than others, but that was bad all over. We still managed to get through it. So.
Well, and we're 2 days away from the 5th anniversary of the governor saying, the great pandemic kicked off. So it's amazing what we've been able to slog through. It certainly hasn't been perfect, but I still think we're doing much better than so many other towns in the valley.
Yeah, people are still out. They're shopping. They're going to restaurants. So it's a mystery to me exactly what the problem is here, but I guess it's happening all over, as you said.
Okay. Anything else for director's report?
Just the long-range plan. If you recall it, so what my current plan is to get a draft together that we can look at together at the next meeting of the trustees, and then you can send me away with any thoughts and revisions that you would like to see in it, additions, subtractions, and we'll try to get that finalized and submitted to the Board of Library Commissioners.
Susan, do you want to talk about the accessibility? Even if you just reiterate what you've already sent?
The Accessibility Committee met in January and then met again in March. We took Lynn's spreadsheet and did a walkthrough at the first meeting and looked at every single item listed on here to see for ourselves what the spreadsheet was talking about. We then took every item here and separated it into 3 groupings of what we thought. Group 1 was things that the library internally could fix themselves, Patrick and his staff, things like the wastebasket and hooks and towel dispensers, etc. Then we made a category of things that we thought the DPW could come in and help us with, and that was things like moving a signage outside 6 inches, or removing coat hooks so they were accessible, that type of thing. And then the 3rd category was other, and those were things that were probably outside of the range of scope for Patrick in the library or the DPW, and that involved plumbing, having to move toilets, the degree of slope on the concrete sidewalk not being in compliance. And so those 3 categories were made. I think I sent you a copy of that. I then also emailed the DPW director with just his portion of what we thought the DPW could do, and CC'd Mike.
Gary, was he included on that or no? Gary Berg?
No. You can resubmit that to him.
It's really Scott. I mean, it's really Scott's to look at it and assign.
And assign it to
internally,
Gary.
whether it's Gary or anybody else. So.
But Gary sometimes is helpful around building.
Oh, typically he's the one. He would be the one that would kind of do this stuff. But again, we can't really go to Gary specifically and say, "Hey, Gary, help us out with these things." It's really for Scott to determine if he's got the bandwidth to help.
And so that was submitted to Scott Monday morning. As of tonight, I haven't heard anything back. So I think where we are at is the portion marked for Patrick in the library. If we want to help with that, I don't know how much help you feel like you need with those items.
I think it's just really a matter of kind of just pecking away at it. Some of those involve. Some of them are. As you said, some of them are very simple things where they're just about reorganizing things from how they are now to some different arrangement, and some of them will entail potentially getting quotes from vendors. So, for instance, we might, for a couple of those things where we're talking about adding coat hooks or things like that to the children's storyroom, because they've noticed that all of the coat hooks that we had custom made and hung up in there, there needs to be 1 or 2 that are at a lower height. So calling those folks up and saying, can you give us a quote for a smaller thing that'll be hung at that appropriate height with maybe 2 hooks. So it's just a bunch of stuff like that of just sort of soliciting the quotes, following up.
Braille signage, right?
Braille signage, that's going back to the whoever the vendor was that created, where there's one right there, those signs, plaque signs with the Braille on it, and just having additional ones made. So it's just a matter of doing research on who did it or who can do it, and then just asking for quotes.
Susan, can you add a little more insight on some of the toilet issues?
So they cited us for toilet. Well, one of them was the seat height needed to be adjusted. So that's just a matter of popping off that seat and buying a thicker seat. Easy enough. But then other ones,
Was some too high or some too low? I'm trying to remember.
I thought one was too close to a wall or something.
There's different things in specific spaces. So there were a couple of instances though where it did. That one was an easy one. I think that was in the family restroom off of the in the children's room.
mm-hmm.
I think that was the one that needed an adjustment to the seat height.
Yeah.
Is that Tetris room?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was something where it's just like changing, as Susan said, just changing the seat. I didn't know you could get different with toilet seats, but okay. And then I think there was an issue with how the toilets were situated in the standard public restrooms here. And the solution was to make one of them, we don't have to adjust them in all four, but we had to, adjust how one of them was placed. And of course, that's that's pipes and walls, and so that's going to be having a plumber come out. But the town has plumbers and electricians on, they have contracts with them, so hopefully they can arrange for whoever has the contract to come out, look at it, give us the quote, and then we determine how to proceed.
The sink is too high.
Yeah.
In one bathroom, it's too close to the wall. In the other bathroom, it's too far from the wall.
We might say the little bears.
Like 1.5 to 3.5 inches.
Yeah,
Three
you
bears,
gotta
right?
love, yeah. Nothing's just right.
We use a toilet so that it's 15
Knee clearance
inches.
under
Yeah.
sinks.
I mean, none of it was, my impression is none of it was huge,
But enough to make it out of.
but, yeah.
Is there some sort of enforcement of this?
So my understanding is no, and that the other town buildings
The
aren't
honor system,
doing
anything.
anything about
I
correcting those.
understood that the select board did a little bit of something for something that was especially egregious somewhere, but I don't know what it was. But there was no overall
Yeah.
plan to address
Yes.
the issues that were identified.
Nor was there a funding source
Right.
to deal with, more importantly.
I mean, it's not exactly an unfunded mandate, but it's
Close.
out there.
Yeah, it's right up
So that's
against
the
it.
other issue then, that grouping called other is going to take money. And so what do the trustees want to do about that? So I think.
Probably not anything anytime soon.
And maybe it will just be tackling, grouping them, tackling them slowly with funds,
Yeah.
I think if we worked on this, which is really, it's going to take time to do all this because it just takes time. But I think if we were, moving forward, item by item and getting through them, we'll get there. But yeah, we need to maybe also, consult with the town administrator, which we did talk with Mike. Were you at that meeting? Did we talk about that when we were together, the three of us? I can't remember. There was a meeting when he was here when we were talking about other stuff, generally the roof and other things. And I brought this up because again, the question hasn't been raised. Like, if this was going to be a compliance issue, like who didn't get out the measuring tape and figure this out? And so I said, okay, well, while we're at it, while we're talking about recourse, we have these other issues, and it's you should be aware of it, that we're looking at it, we're taking it seriously. But I mean, again, it does raise the issue: who went wrong here? Where did the fault lie, and why are we now having to do this corrective work?
Well, is this something that going to Sullivan, back to him, can you get anything out of it?
I don't know that there would be any.
I don't know, but we just wanted to
recourse.
make sure that he was, that he was aware of it. It was just like one other thing that, if it had a compelling angle that, and there's this other stuff, we just thought that he should be aware of it, and that the town council should be aware of it as well, because I mean, some of it is,
Add to the list.
some of it's not inexpensive, to do the concrete work. Was there an estimate on that for the concrete work?
I don't remember. They did give estimates for some of it, but I don't know where they come up with
Yeah,
those
but those are more
estimates.
than a year old too.
It's so interesting that
Yeah,
when
so
you're
they-
building, that no one.
$7,500 they said for that.
It's shocking.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for
Yeah,
undertaking it. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
totally.
So what do we want to do for follow-up on it?
Is it
I'll
ongoing?
follow up on what happens with the DPW.
Yeah.
Okay.
I asked him for a meeting to discuss it and review those items.
Yeah, I think we all agreed it was important for whoever was going to be thinking about this on their side to come over and walk through with us and just look at all these things,
Mhm.
and so they could get their minds around it as well. And I do want to say that having these conversations around this was helpful, and I am actually less overwhelmed by the prospect of this than I was when this first dropped.
Also,
Just with the
I
list,
think
said,
we
wow.
have good intention, right? Like, we can prove, like, if somebody came back, oh, we're methodically looking at this, we have a system, we're working through it, right?
Yeah,
Like,
or at least looking at it.
And we're
Exactly.
at least not blindsided by it.
Right.
Assuming that this is a fairly thorough accounting of things that may be an issue, at least we're not going to be completely caught off guard by a complaint.
Yeah, and it does seem like some of the items were addressed. Right?
Yeah, I guess that would be the other thing, Patrick, is to keep a running document of what
Has been corrected.
Has been,
Yeah.
yeah,
Sure,
has been
yeah.
corrected. So if you would just let me know, I can make, I don't know if I had a column in there, because this I had written a column called date completed. But I can add that in, just so that we have
on
documentation.
Instagram,
Sure.
yeah.
Is there anything else?
Well, just a question. So Susan, when does your term end?
May? What, elections 22nd?
May, I would think May is my last one, right?
So you're here for 2 more meetings? Okay. Because, you may want to give me some more coaching on note-taking and such.
Are you
I'm just trying to
volunteering
think
be
of...
clerk?
What?
Are you volunteering to be clerk?
Well, I don't...
That's what it's not like.
I'm not sure if Julie is watching, but there's not that many choices on who else could do it unless we rotate it, which would make sense too.
Which we did it at one point.
We did.
I think one bad thing about rotating is the consistency of the minutes, like
I know, because everyone has their own style.
style,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
But they're not fun. It's, when you're taking notes like that, you can never be as active a participant in the conversation. And the consistency, I understand, but I don't know that that's the highest priority. But anyway, do we have anything else? Okay. Then we're done.
Do we need to make a motion?
Yeah.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we
Second.
adjourn.
All in favor of adjourning? Yay!
Okay. How was your trip down south?